Thank you very much, Rotarian, Karen, President Mark, fellow Rotarians. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Uh, I'm really happy to be here. I bring you greetings from President Risa of the Rotary Club of Garden City and the rest of directors and members of the club. Today, I am actually joining you from Florida. I'm en route to the Zone Summit for Zone 3334 in Jacksonville, Florida. The Rotary Club of Garden City, as Mark mentioned, and I'm sure you all know, is a fellow baby club, like the Rotary Club of All Nations. We're celebrating our fifth anniversary in a few weeks' time. We came out of the COVID-19 pandemic when we got our charter. We were all meeting virtually. Our president actually had moved to Canada, and for the duration of his term, I think he served an 18-month term. He actually never set foot in Guyana, which is really unique at the time. A lot of clubs now are hybrid clubs or virtual clubs like yours, but at the time this was quite novel. So it's something we share. As Corinne mentioned in her introduction, the Rotary Club of Garden City is a cause-based club with a focus on the environment. One of the challenges I've had is conceptualizing, well, what type of environmental club are we? Are we an urban beautification project club, a planting gardens club? Are we hardcore climate change campaigners? It's something we haven't really figured out. It's an evolving thing. Of course, it's a bit of an evolving concept at the moment with the global climate change uh, movement still evolving. There isn't really a clear consensus among large nations about what we should do. You, of course, all being Americans, would be familiar with the policies of your government at the moment and how it differs from the former government. Ironically, of course, Ghana is both a leader in conservation, forest conservation, as well as a leading producer of fossil fuels. I'm not sure there are many countries in the world that are in this position. A third element of it, of course, is that we're extremely vulnerable to climate change, being most of the coastline is below sea level, and that's where 90% of the population lives. You're all familiar with the US petro giant ExxonMobil. It's the largest oil producer in Guyana and controls the Stabroek Block, where it owns 45% of it, along with another American firm, Chevron, which owns 30%, and a Chinese firm, CNOOC, which owns 25% of the block. They've Since 2015, there are over 30 discoveries of oil, and they say they've got about 11 billion barrels of oil available. They're also producing gas and contributing to the establishment of a major gas plant in Guyana. They expect by 2030 to be producing 1.7 million barrels of oil per day. As you can imagine, this generates, despite concerns about the quality of revenue sharing, this generates huge revenues for the state of Guyana and has significantly transformed the capacity of the government to improve the lives of the people. The way in which this is felt at the moment is providing infrastructure projects, a major gas project that should provide cheap electricity for the population and to allow for significant economic expansion. There are also tremendous changes in infrastructure, construction of schools, hospitals, etc. And the pace of this has really been staggering. The challenge, of course, is to ensure the quality of these things that we're building are sufficient to have the impact on persons' lives that they could potentially have. Um, Most of you have either visited or heard a lot of Guyana from President Mark and or may have seen it yourself. But for those of you who haven't, just a quick snapshot. As I mentioned, most of the population lives on the coast, which is below sea level. And if you go a few miles away from the coast, you encounter a very different country with very little infrastructure or development. What that means is that life life gets pretty difficult if you're far away from healthcare, far away from schools, far away from urban centers with government services, or far away from police stations. And once you leave the coast, you're pretty much on your own, with the exception of a few small towns or the other hubs of economic activity. And what that means is that you can see side by side major significant economic activity right next door to poverty and deprivation. Persons don't have adequate security, they don't enjoy the infrastructure that we take for granted in modern life. They don't involve basic things like potable water. Rotary International does a lot of projects in this area, and clubs in Guyana have done lots of work in taking potable water to these communities. The club I was a member of before Georgetown had done a huge well, and what struck me every time I would visit the community to see on the progress of the well during my year as president, side by side with deprivation, you'd have resources being extracted from the same communities in the form of logging or mining. And it's difficult to accept, on the one hand, vast wealth right next door to poverty, literally side by side. I did another project last year with a Rotary Club called Rotary Club of Demerara that had gone about 100 miles towards the northwest of Guyana near the Venezuelan border. We went by boat. It took about a day and a half to get there. And in the community that we were visiting, it was populated mainly by indigenous tribes from who may have moved over from Venezuela. They sort of go back and forth because the border really means nothing to them. So they go this way, they go that way. It's been going on for millennia. And even though you've got the rise of nation states, it still continues. So they're living in relative squalor, and we do what we can to assist them mainly with potable water. But on the other side of the river, there are these huge fishing vessels or fuel smuggling vessels. Right next door, there's a police station right next door, there's a school right next door. And so you have all these things taking place within sight of each other, deprivation in right next to prosperous economic activity. And this has been going on all the time. I think as Rotarians, it's difficult to see this and not be moved. But such is the way of the world. The point here is not necessarily to complain, but really to observe that we do have a lot more to do to make the world a better place. I imagine in your own country, in the US, you have some of the very same problems that we have. The global changes in politics and technology are affecting all of us in similar ways. In Guyana, politics has always suffered from deep racial divisions. A lot of the major political parties are ethnic-based parties. We have large population of Afro-Guyanese who are descendants of enslaved persons. They make up about 30% of the population. Close to 40% are the descendants of East Indian indentured immigrants. 10% are indigenous natives, and the remainder are mixed. There are low single digits of Chinese or Portuguese descendants or from the British Isles. There's been a shift in these populations and voting patterns, and it's complicated the political matrix significantly. One of the most interesting things in the last election, which was held a week ago, is the rise of what I think you can probably describe as a TikTok candidate. I refer to literally TikTok, the social media platform. A local businessman, Azudin Mohammed, who has made tremendous money from the international gold trade and is subject to US government sanctions, launched a campaign about 3 or 4 months ago. I'm not quite sure what his policies are. It is not in serious dispute that he's been very active gold smuggler. He's just, I think he's in his 30s, not quite 40, maybe about 35, ridiculously rich. And he's managed to take away from one of the major ethnic-based parties a significant number of their support. And I mean, no, speaking for myself, I expected him to be wiped out in the polls because I personally can't take him seriously. But he's won 14 seats, and 89,000 people have supported him by giving him his vote. He's held no press conferences, but now he's the leader of the opposition. And it's really quite staggering. Another major issue in Ghana right now is the continued evolution of our dispute with Venezuela. We are, of course, trying to resolve a major boundary dispute through the International Court of Justice, and we have enjoyed the support of the U.S. government. As you know, the U.S. government changes sides from time to time. They're very much in the Venezuelan camp when the dispute emerged. In fact, they're probably one of the major agitators. They are also major agitators in giving life to the renewed enthusiasm of Venezuela to the dispute during the Cold War. And their official position is that they sort of support Ghana. Of course, our oil has a lot to do with it. In the last week, the US government has increased military assets in the region. And of course, you may have heard of the US military strike on a small boat, which they claimed killed 11 persons involved in the drug trade. A lot of it makes no sense. A lot of the way in which these things are being approached in the time we live seems strange to all of us. Nothing is what you think it is. People will tell you that black is white and white is black, and we really don't know where it's going to go. So there's lots of uncertainty, and imagine it's much the same for you. We hope that what comes out of it is increased prosperity for all and a peaceful world. And as Rotarians, I think we share the same values and have the same goals. President Mark, I know you're a stickler for time and I've gone on too long, but thank you very much for having me. I hope this has been interesting for your members. It's certainly been a pleasure for me.